and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Hypnotherapist. I, as always, am your host, Lily. I am a certified hypnotherapist and a trainer of Conversational Hypnosis, where I teach other hypnotherapists, therapists, practitioners of all other modalities how to utilize, in my opinion, the revolutionary technique of conversational hypnosis to amplify and elevate your existing therapeutic practice. So welcome to today's episode. As always, I'm so keen to get into the topic because if it interests me as a practitioner, I know it is going to interest other practitioners out there that are just so keen to help their clients as best they can. And what I want to talk about today is this idea of willpower. And I think it's something that we hear so much, mostly from, to be honest, our clients. Particularly for me, I hear a lot of my clients come to me and they say, I just don't have enough willpower. Because I work a lot with things like binge eating, they always just say, I just don't have willpower. Other people have it and I don't. And I sit there thinking, I know that's not the problem. It's not a willpower problem, but it's this myth, this lie that we've been told. And it's interesting, things like diet culture is built on it. Just have more discipline. Habit apps and things, you just have to build the habit and you just have to do it. Smoking programs, they're built on it. Even some forms of talk therapy is built on a bit of that willpower and discipline. Let's strengthen your resolve and things like that, which isn't always unhelpful, but I think it gives too much power to this idea that if you are struggling, you are just missing willpower and discipline, and therefore, it kind of morphs into this idea of laziness. And I just do not at all subscribe to that idea. And from working with so many clients who struggle in multiple different areas, who believe that willpower is the problem, I've been able to realize that it's simply not that at all. And I've written some notes, so if you see me looking down, I am reading my notes because my memory, particularly at the moment, is shocking. But what I've written about willpower is it is a conscious, effortful process, right? It is something that you have to put conscious effort into. It lives in the prefrontal cortex. So that's like the newest, most human, in quote marks, part of the brain. But it's also the part that gets exhausted the quickest and goes offline the quickest when it's under stress, or it's hijacked by urgencies like hunger or exhaustion or emotions. And when we think about something like binge eating, we know that is absolutely fueled by that. So willpower simply can't be the answer, but the problem that you're trying to solve, say for instance, the binge eating, the smoking, the anxious spiral, that doesn't live in the prefrontal cortex, doesn't live in that conscious, logical part. It's a subconscious, it's automatic. It's been rehearsed hundreds and hundreds of times, for some people more than that, because a lot of these things develop in childhood. So when you're actually asking someone to use willpower, we're asking them to override this very strong, very automatic, very repeated, automatic part of their brain. That is not an easy task. And it's something that will feel incredibly difficult and incredibly uncomfortable for someone. And yes, sure, you can push through discomfort and things like that, but for how long? And how maintainable is that? And don't we want it to be a little bit more instinctual than just simply forcing yourself to override this part of you that is so, so strong? And that's, really where I really like to sort of change the narrative with my clients, that we don't want to be forcing anything. We don't want to be forcing and almost fighting this part of us, because to me that assumes that this part of us, our subconscious, is bad and it's us against them. And I just simply don't subscribe to that, even though the way that it manifests and the way that it shows up in our lives and the patterns that it causes and things like that often are very, very unhelpful and can be very destructive to our lives. The intention behind it is never that. It is always simply a protective, coping mechanism that we have rehearsed hundreds and hundreds of times, that it has become an automatic programming for us. So the subconscious mind, I don't think, is the enemy that's holding us back. It's incredibly efficient. It automates, so many things so that the conscious mind doesn't have to make those decisions and expend that energy on that every second of every day. The problem isn't that your subconscious mind is broken. It's that at some point it learned an association, and it's an association that typically is just no longer serving the person. And it's not been updated. It's not been questioned. It's not been challenged, because so many of these things we just accept are a part of us. And it feels like it's this big, unsolvable thing, this thing that cannot be changed, like those identity statements that we were talking about last week, like I'm just an anxious person, or I just crumble under stress, or I'm a binge eater, I'm a smoker, I'm this, I'm that. It's these things that we have identified with for so long that have become a part of who we are, that we feel like they're just sort of like inevitable and unchangeable. And we never take the time to actually just question it. And, like I've said on this podcast as well before, I firmly believe that no problem, like anxiety, for instance, ever starts off to be a problem. It starts off to be a solution to a problem. And absolutely, it outgrows its expiry date, for sure. It isn't helpful anymore, and maybe it only was for a very short amount of time, but the intention is always a positive one. And that's where we speak a lot about in this podcast as well, like subconscious payoffs. We need to figure out, how is this behavior or this problem for your client actually potentially having that subconscious benefit, or had that subconscious benefit at one point or another. And coming back to, the willpower of it all, change that lasts, truly lasts and is maintainable. It doesn't come from overpowering the system. It comes from working with it, not against it. And I think that is where we, in so many different modalities, can go so wrong, is that we don't teach our clients to work with it. We buy into this idea that it's the enemy, and we have them work against it. It's like them versus the problem. And what we want to be doing, and what I teach my students to do, in conversational hypnosis, is to find out what this behavior is doing for someone. and really understanding the beliefs and the emotions behind that and that deeper core level. What need is it meeting? And we want to be able to, I suppose, we want to be able to help them rewire that so that we're giving the subconscious mind a better, more current way to meet that need, essentially. And I find that this is why conversational hypnosis and hypnotic subconscious processes in general, as you know, lots of different modalities out there, I find that this is why they succeed so consistently, but also in such a maintainable way. We're trying to simply use something like conscious willpower, just fails over and over again. I mean, you've heard probably hundreds of stories of people saying, yeah, you know, I went on that diet and I lost heaps of weight, but then, you know, the challenge was over. And so I was exhausted from, you know, putting in all that effort. So then, you know, I just put all the weight back on because I wasn't able to maintain the lifestyle or the habits that we were implementing. The same with, you know, smoking. People, you know, maybe they'd go for 30 days or whatever, and it took such mental and emotional anguish that by the end of the 30 days, it's just like, oh, you know, whatever. And that's why willpower is such a short-term solution. And, you know, we want to be, of course, working with our clients to find long-term solutions, sustainable long-term solutions. And that, in my mind, can simply only come from working with the subconscious mind. So willpower, great for that short-term progress, great for that, you know, if you need to get up in the morning and you can't rely on anything else, you have to rely on willpower and discipline, great. Like, it has its uses. It's not completely useless. It's a great part that we can muster. But if there is change that we are wanting to make for the long term, lifestyle changes, things that are going to be implemented into our everyday, and we want it to feel easeful and not like every day is a chore, then we need to be making that change on that subconscious level where the problem was rooted, where it was created, where it has been repeated so many times. And we need to be working on that level so that the change feels as automatic as the problem once did. So if you are someone listening to this and you're like, oh, this is me, like I always say, I just need more willpower, like, give yourself a break, one, because willpower alone is not going to make the types of changes that you want to make. And that's not through weakness on your part, it's just through our mind doesn't really work like that. So I would encourage you to do the deeper work and work on that subconscious level. Remember, you can always book in a free discovery call with me and we can just chat about, you know, what you're going through. And I can tell you more about, okay, this is how a session works, this is what we do, this is what you can expect. And obviously no obligation or anything like that. I always offer discovery calls because I want my clients to feel really comfortable and really confident going into sessions before just booking it in. If you are a practitioner and you're wanting to learn how to work on that deeper level with your clients, you've come to the right place. I teach, as you know, conversational hypnosis, and it is an online training. So all of it is recorded online. It's 2-day trainings that I record, and we host them live every 12 weeks. So you can start learning straight away through the online recorded content and then come along to any of the live trainings to get that further support and practice. But it's a really, really great way to just amplify your existing practice and get those deeper results for your clients where they are seeing long-term change. So all of the links are in the description below. And you can always send me a message on Instagram. And if you just want to chat, I'm here. And I would absolutely love if you would subscribe to this podcast, because it means you get notified whenever I post a new episode, which, to be honest, they are every week, but I don't have a specific day. I just post them whenever I feel like it. So you want to be notified, but also it just really helps other people find my channel. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.